Hey there, this is Kenneth Moore, and you're now watching Zion's Watchman Media. And we are now on our last video in our series called The Vale of Sodom. Truly, this series for me has been a real blessing, being able to have shared these lessons with you about the story of Sodom. And I pray that you yourself have been blessed. But we've now come to the last video of our series, which could arguably be the most important. In this video, we are going to be talking about the story of Sodom and its deep connection with the three angels' messages. Now, some of you are probably wondering, how in the world are we going to connect these two? I mean, aren't the three angels' messages only found at the end of the Bible, in Revelation? And the answer to this is yes and no. It is true that the three angels' messages are found directly in Revelation chapter 14, but if you were looking closely throughout this entire series, you would have noticed that they were there. Though not openly, they were there, hidden beneath the surface. You see, God shaped these stories in such a way to not only tell us of events or people that transpired ages ago, but also to warn us of the times coming ahead. As the Apostle Paul writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 11, "Now all these things happen unto them for ensamples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come." Now, before going any further, I think it would be a great idea for us to know at least what the three angels' messages are. So let us read them in Revelation chapter 14, starting with verse 6. "And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel, to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation, and kindred, and tongue, and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God, and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth, the sea, and the fountains of water. And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she hath made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone, in the presence of the holy angels, and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they have no rest, day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name." Okay, so now that we know what they are, let us go back and see if they are actually found in the Vale of Sodom. And let us start with the story of Abraham. If you remember, in this story, there was a certain number of individuals who visited him. Yes, 3. And do you remember the message that was given him? "I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me. If not, I will know." Here we see the first angel's message, a message of judgment, an investigative judgment, a work of separating the righteous from the wicked. Now, on to the second angel's message, and where do we find it? We find it the night where Lot was rescued from the angry mob by his 2 guests. And what did they say to him? "And the men said unto Lot, Hast thou here any besides, son-in-law, and thy sons, and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place, for we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxen great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord hath sent us to destroy it." In other words, the city is fallen, and is doomed for destruction. Get out as quickly as possible. And the third angel's message, we find it in verse 15, right after Lot has failed to convince his sons-in-law and daughters to leave Sodom. "Then the angels hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters, which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city." So if you remained in the city, you would be destroyed along with it. Now, let us read a description of how Sodom was actually destroyed in verses 24 and 25. "Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven, and he overthrew those cities, and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the city, and that which grew upon the ground. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord. And he looked toward Sodom, and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace." So we had fire, brimstone, and smoke ascending. These 3 are a direct parallel to what we read in the third angel's message. There is no way this is coincidence. Okay, so if all of these connections are right, then where is Sodom's parallel in the 3 angels' messages? Sodom can be none other than Babylon the Great, or the Roman Catholic system, the papacy. And it's fascinating that the two sins that characterize Sodom, violence and violence against God's people, and homosexuality, are seen so clearly in the history of the Roman Catholic system. Okay, now that we know this, let us go back to the story of Sodom, looking at it again with these parallels in mind. And going back to the beginning with Abraham, we see how he was warned of the destruction of Sodom and how he pleaded with God that the sinners in the city would not be destroyed. In this, we see the long suffering of God and his willingness to forgive. We also see that the first angel's message, or the message of judgment, offers mercy with it. It's a message of judgment and mercy. For up until this point, Sodom had not reached her limit, and there was still a chance for her to repent. This should bring hope and motivate the sinner to return to Christ and to turn away from their sins. In this story, we also see that Abraham is a type of Christ, who is now in the heavenly sanctuary pleading with the Father that we will all be saved. Another fascinating point to be looked at is the conflict that happened between Lot, the angry mob, and his two guests. Truly, there is nothing new under the sun, for this scenario is being played out right before our eyes today. There is a conflict in our world, a conflict between Rome, God's remnant church, and the three angels' messages. For Rome is now surrounding the house of God's remnant church with the fist of ecumenism, with her angry fist demanding that God's remnant church give up her heavenly messengers. And it's so fascinating that in this story, Sodom wanted to abuse the last two messengers. And so today, Rome wants to water down and kill especially the last two messengers, for they condemn her sins directly. But we learn a very powerful lesson from this story of Lot, and it is this. It is that as we protect the three angels' messages and refuse to give them up, they will ultimately end up protecting us. For as Lot defended his two guests and refused to give them up to the angry mob, they ended up protecting him instead. So it is today. People may not like the messages we have to bring. People may mock us for it. They may hate us for it. They may even want to kill us for it. But we cannot allow these three angels' messages that God has given us to be watered down or taken away from us. For by defending the three angels' messages and holding on to them, it is the only way that God's remnant church can be protected from ecumenism and falling back into the hands of Rome. Another very interesting point that we should look at is Lot's encounter with his sons-in-law. Do you remember how they viewed the message? They mocked it to scorn. Lot, you're a fanatic. These events that you're preaching to us will never happen in our lifetime. I mean, come on, everything in the world is going on just as it has before. You've heard these words. There's no investigative judgment going on. It doesn't matter how you live. You can live in sin. The heavenly sanctuary, oh, come on, it's not really there. Or another one. It doesn't matter if we join hands with these apostate churches in the ecumenical movement and study from their teachers or study in their seminaries. I mean, we have so much in common. Or the papacy cannot still be termed the Antichrist system. And I mean, is there really a big difference between keeping Sunday and Saturday? I mean, they're so close together. Brothers and sisters, these are the words of Lot's son-in-laws. And if we end up mocking the three angels' messages as they did, we will end up in the same fire and brimstone as they did. God forbid. Let us wake up. The last portion of the story that I want to look at is the effect that the three angels' messages had on Lot's family and with the sinners in Sodom. And it was this. It brought about a complete separation. And this was inevitable. For these messages came from the Father of lights, and light cannot exist with darkness. And this will happen again. God will shed light on his faithful people in Babylon, and they will take heed to the message and separate from this false system of worship and take their stand on the side of truth. And this coming out of Babylon, or coming out of sin, or coming out of the world, is a theme that we see that runs all throughout the Bible. If we want to be saved, we must separate from sin and from sinners. And the Apostle Paul admonishes us in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 17, where he says, "Wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you." If we leave Babylon, Christ gives us a promise that he will not leave us alone, but he will receive us unto himself. May we all be willing to leave Babylon or anything that would keep us separate from the love of Christ. And may we all take heed and hold on to the three angels' messages, these precious truths for this time. This has been Kenneth Moore from Zion's Watchman Media, and as always, until next time.